My name is Ray McCreary, and this is my presentation on learning. What is learning? As defined in the book, learning is any relatively permanent change in behavior brought about by experience or practice. There are many ways to learn new habits or behaviors, and through this presentation we will look at some of the most well-known processes. First is classical conditioning. Classical conditioning was made most famous by the experiment conducted on dogs by Ivan Pavlov. His efforts define classical conditioning as an involuntary reflex-like response to a stimulus other than the original natural stimulus that normally reduces it. This is the process by which the dogs eventually begin to salivate at just the sound of the metronome versus needing to have the food present. He also showed that this can be reversible in the process called extinction. Later experiments by others showed that classical conditioning can also be applied to human behavior. Next is operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is the voluntary behavior that occurs in learning processes. Research conducted by Edward L. Thorndike and B. F. Skinner contributed greatly to establishing the definition and recognition of operant conditioning as a learning process. Through this research, we learned the effects of both positive and negative reinforcement. Whether they are primary or secondary on the learning process, we can also see the effects of punishment on behavior. Whether dealing with punishment by application or punishment by removal, there are some guidelines that should be followed for it to be the most effective. Punishment should immediately follow the behavior. Punishment should be consistent, and punishment of the wrong behavior should be paired, if possible, with reinforcement of the right behavior. Operant conditioning can be summed up in this question: if I do this, what's in it for me? Third is the cognitive learning theory. The cognitive learning theory was developed mostly thanks to Edward Tolman, Wolfgang Kohler, and Martin Seligman. Edward Tolman showed the concept of latent learning with his maze-running rats, a concept showing that even when we do not have to learn something, we still can store some of this knowledge and it can affect future behavior. Kohler presented the concept of insight learning through his study of Sultan the chimp, a concept that expresses the ability to learn through more than just trial and error. Sometimes there is coming together, or aha moment, that helps us pull all of the parts of the problem together. Seligman, a modern psychologist, showed the concept of learned helplessness, defined as the tendency to fail to act, to escape from a situation because of history of repeated failures. These three concepts together help to describe the cognitive learning theory. The final process is observational learning. Observational learning is learning a new behavior through watching the actions of someone else doing that behavior. This can be a positive or a negative behavior. Albert Bandura, through a series of observation learning experiments, concluded that 4 elements must be present for this to occur successfully. They are attention, memory, imitation, meaning if they are capable of reproducing the action, and desire. This is also referred to as a social learning theory. The social learning theory has long been applied to describe much of human behavior, but one specific way that this theory has been applied in recent years is in research of criminal behavior. There has also been research relating the social learning theory to cyberbullying tendencies. In both of these instances, seeing the behavior perpetrated by someone else had some influence on the behavior of the observer. Although there are more factors than just the visual, the social learning theory has also been used to try and promote positive parenting and other positive behavior. The end.